Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the first ever, or the first in this series definitely, season roundup of the main Twitch save for this year, which as you know from the intro video is with Orkney FC. So this is the season wrap up for the first season of the save, and we're just going to be going through a few parts of a few key bits of the save so far, catch you up on all you need to know before season 2. I'm obviously trying this out for the first time, so let me know what you think about it and how I can improve on the next one. I might, as we go into the future, do maybe like bi-seasonally updates as opposed to annually, just because, as you know, there's going to be a lot of seasons in this, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump into it. So here we are in the game, as you can see, there we are as Orkney, or I was going to say Orkney FC, but it is just Orkney in game. Of course, these kits have been added in just for this save. As you can see from the top row, you can see that we did indeed make the playoffs. Now, if you're familiar with the process of the league system, it's very complicated. But long story short, we did indeed end up winning the league. As you can see there, we were clear by 4 points in the end from Holkirk United, who, to be honest, were never really challenging us. The challenges really came from Golspie, who finished 4th, and Invergordon down in 7th. To be honest, Clackner in A, which is their reserve team, even though they finished 6th, they were top for a while, up until like the last 3 or 4 games, to be honest. As well, they and Nairn County cannot be promoted, so even if they had won the league, whoever finished second, as long as it wasn't the other A team, they would have been gone into the playoff places. So as you can see there, we did win the league. And just to give you a little bit of an update on this, on the way that the season went, before we go into sort of the in depth of the squad. So it was interesting having done this save a few times now. You sort of know what you need to do to win the league, and based off of our loss record, the fact that we lost 4 games, it was actually probably one of the less, I don't want to say worse, but less good seasons. But at the same time, when you've got teams around you that are losing 6, 8, 10 games, drawing 10 games, that's just not really good enough. So we were quite fortunate in that instance. So I mean, our form was good. Obviously, we started off the season with a loss. You never really start these seasons at the start very well. You got a completely brand new squad. You got time to gel and all that. But then we picked it up into August with a win as well in the cup. We were only in 2 cups this year, but I will get onto that shortly. And as well, there was a fair few gaps in the early parts of the season, so we filled it with a couple of friendlies. But you can see there's a bit of form getting put together here, especially as we go through September and into October. And then, of course, yeah, you can see there we got knocked out of the Football Times Cup, which is one of 2 cups that we were entered into, the other one being the North Caledonian Cup. I believe all the teams were in so they're all from our league, so both were sort of almost there like a league cup, which is so there was effectively 2 league cups that we were in this year. And we fell short on one of them. And yeah, you can sort of just see further down here. We had a really good November and December, really, with only a loss. But, a couple of draws in there. Which when you back them up with a win, it makes them look a lot better. You can see as well, really good attendances for our level. Breaking the 100 barrier on more than one occasion is really good for our level and really good for the old finances. And then into the second half of the season, you can see here, we did end up winning the North Caledonian Cup. I'm going to get onto the end of the season finale at the end in a little bit. But you can see there we put a really good run together through January into February and into March as well. This being like one of the highlight of the games, it being a 6-3, which in reality it was flattering really. I think it was about 6-2 or 6-1 at some point. And chucking a couple of narrow losses in there as well. So yeah, we did well to maintain our squad and maintain our form. Some of them 3-1s that were probably a little bit more generous. It was probably a late goal, late doors. Just sort of round things off on a couple of occasions. There was a couple of late goals that saw us home. So not overly convincing, but it doesn't need to be really. You're just all about trying to get the results at this stage. And then yeah, so the way this let me talk to you about how the league system worked. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit how the structures worked in game. Remember, we are using Moz's database for the Scottish lower leagues. I will leave a link to the database in the description, so if you want to be involved with it yourself, you can, feel free. There's a couple of ways you can go about it, but I'll just leave the Steam link in there. It's very easy. You just click subscribe on your Steam Workshop, downloads, and you're away really for your new save. So this is how it works in this league system. So we are obviously in the North Caledonian League, and we want to get into the Highland League because we're based in the north of Scotland. So the Highland League is for teams, in North Scotland, and the Lowland League is for South Scotland and sort of the central belt, where I know geography might not be a strong point. Where Glasgow and Edinburgh really are located, and where a lot of people who live in Scotland are located. So we're obviously in the North Caledonian League. There is only one spot available to get into the Highland League, and it's between the winners of the North Caledonian League, the winners of the Scottish Junior North Premier Division, and the Scottish Midlands League. So effectively, you're entering a 3-team playoff with the champions of this league, and this league. Now, that is not all you need to know. So once you get through that, which is a 3-team playoff, you play each other once, and it's just whoever tops the group goes through into the second half of the playoff, which is against the team that is relegated from the Highland Football League, which, as you can see from here, was Deverondale. You can't quite see at the bottom, but you can see that they are bottom. They were bottom on 19 points, and there were 6 behind Keith, who finished second bottom. And so they were the team that had to face whoever was coming out of that playoff over a 2-legged tie to see who goes into the Highland League or who stays in the Highland League. Now, amazingly, having never sort of got to this point before in my life, having played this game, I'd gotten into the 3-team playoff before, but not gotten through it. We actually managed to get through the playoff. It's not actually that one. It's here. And yeah, we had 2 really good results against 2 really strong teams from the other 2 divisions. As you can see from here, we got a draw. You can't quite see it, but Brufty Athletic, we got a draw at home to them. They were really strong, and we managed to pick up a 2-0 win away at Maud, which again was really strong for us. And that took us obviously into the Highland League playoff final, which, I mean, this is FM all over. We got a red card with inside the first minute. In fact, I'm going to show you it now because I feel like you have to see it to believe it. I mean, it's honestly, having not had a red card throughout the entire season. I even checked, and then we get this. And there's just nothing you can just do. I mean, 43 seconds on the clock, straight red, our centre midfielder is off. And that really killed us for the entire game. I mean, you look at the stats, and we were well up for it. We were well in it throughout the entire game. But apart from the red card, where we were just... There's no coming back from that. If it was 11 versus 11, I thought maybe we could get a draw and take it back to their place, make it even. But we couldn't manage it. So we were on the back foot heading into the away leg, and honestly, I was sort of at the time thinking it's sort of not going to happen. And then we got a 1-1 draw at their place. You look at the stats again, very even. If anything, we edged it. But having that 2-goal deficit to come over, and they'd taken the lead inside the first 15 minutes, we only scored when we started going really attacking right at the end. So in reality, it was never going to happen. So ultimately, we didn't get promoted. We finished obviously winning the league. We won the League Cup, and we were obviously knocked out of the other one. But we fell short in the playoff final. So that really gives us that really tells you all you need to know about our season. I'm now going to go into a little bit of depth about the players and what the squad makeup was, and just to give you an idea about how the squad looked and how we're going to look for the second season. So this is our squad makeup. Now, obviously, you're not going to be very familiar with any of these names unless you are a stalwart of Orkney FC. You might recognise a few, but I just want to give you a quick rundown about what we've done sort of transfer-wise and how I've approached it, and how maybe this might help you with your lower league saves if you're going into this sort of save using the database. So here is sort of how we did our transfers. So you can see here, we released a lot of the original players. So just as an indication, I don't know if this is all the original players, but all these players here were already at the club when I arrived. As you can see by the dates, really, we offloaded a vast majority of them, and I'll show you the incomings at the minute. I think that's all of them. I don't think there's any here. No. So yeah, that we sort of offloaded a lot of the original starting players. They just weren't quite good enough. We had quite an overload of centre halves at the start of the season, so I thought it would be best to cut down on them, cut down on some of the wages as well, and just make a bit of room that we could use elsewhere. We also brought in this guy that we brought in during the season, but he only played a handful of times, so we also got rid of him later on in the season because he wanted to leave. And as you can see there by the stats, this is the sort of player you're dealing with. These are the sort of players that you're dealing with. And then on the ins, we did a lot of business, so. All he was already here when I arrived, and all these were done by myself once the game had got underway. Henderson, who is sort of my first choice left back, was really solid. He's always improving. He's only 20 years of age. He had a bit of a rocky time in a few games. I don't think his average rating was great, and to be honest, I think it let him down in a few places. But he's definitely one for the future and would be here for moving forward, absolutely. Halsman, who I think will probably already leave. Remember, there's a high turnover of players at this level, so reality is that you're going to have a lot of these players for maybe a year, maybe even half of the season, and then you're just going to move past them. There's going to be a high turnover of players. Halsman, who is already going to leave, I think. He was like I got him as a left winger because we didn't really have one, was more because of what was available. You can see he's only on £5 a week. I only had him down as a fringe player, but he wasn't really that. I ended up bringing in another left mid who was a lot better, so he ended up being a bit of a bit part player. Same with Swanson on the right hand side. I've had him in previous renditions of this save. He's also leaving after this season as well, and yeah, it was just lacking in a few areas and wasn't quite useful. He's getting on a bit as well, so there's no harm done there. Sweeney was one of the strikers I brought in, actually was really crucial, got himself 11 goals in 14 games this year. He's also leaving at the end of the season. I end up upsetting a lot of the players by not giving them the game time they wanted, but this was later into the season when we just needed to win and keep the same team and not mess things up too much. So yeah, he's on his way out. But again, he was one of three strikers that we sort of rotated through. So there was no real harm in him leaving us because he wasn't the best. But at the same time, he came up with some really important goals. I mean, you can see there he got 11 in 24. A really decent record. So, no complaints from me there on his performance. We then had Liam Shaw, who I brought in on loan from Gretna, who's only a youngster, and I would love to get him back next season, if possible, on a permanent deal. He was a really good right winger for us, got tons of assists for us. 6 assists and 9 goals in 26 games. It was really useful for us on that right-hand side and was really dangerous. A lot of our attacks went through him, so I really want to get him back for the next season. And then we had Will Greenhorn, who again was another loanee from Stirling Albion this time. Again, I got him early in the window when I thought opportunities were sparse for players to bring in, but he never really cut it. I ended up replacing him about halfway through the season. His average rating is good, but in reality he was a bit too slow and a bit too weak for where we are. He's only got 8 strength, his pace isn't very good. His balance is also pretty poor, but his technicals were okay for the level we're at. I was playing him in centre half not as a right back either, so he won't be coming back. He just doesn't quite cut the mustard for us, I'm afraid. Abdullah Ahmed, who was on our left wing, is also leaving us because he was upset about not getting a new contract, which we did offer. We did offer a new contract. He just didn't accept the terms. And ignoring sort of the stats, he played really well for us. 10 assists in 22. So you have him on one side, you have Liam Short on the other, banging crosses into the big guys in the box. Was really effective for us and was a really good player. Would like to have kept him, but unfortunately he's going to have to move on. But it's fine because I'm sure we'll be able to replace him. As I said before, there's a lot of a high turnover of players. Scott Hinmarsh, who I already pointed out, we let go. He brought him in as a right back, but we ended up getting a better right back in anyway. Justin Watson was a midfielder that we ended up sort of not using so much by the end of the season. I will like to keep him next season. Stats are not too spectacular, but did a good job as that sort of attacking centre mid. I'll show you the tactic and how we played shortly, but yeah, this is how he lined up. Was fairly pacey as well for where he is, only a small lad as well. So we'll definitely be looking to keep him on. In fact, he's here for another year. I think I ended up giving him a new contract in the end. So he's down for another year. Ben Cameron was the other right back that we brought in, really strong. He was just first on the team sheet, just did a job. You didn't notice him, arguably. He was just there. He did his job. And he was very uneventful, unspectacular, and that is really what you're after in a right back. You don't want anyone to be sort of causing you stress or causing you anxiety about playing him. But you can see he's getting better. He's only 21. I'll definitely be looking to keep him for next season as well. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his first name. Wallace. We brought him in as a goalkeeper. We did only have one goalkeeper. I think we let go one of our backups, but we needed a better goalkeeper as our number one, and he did the job. I'm never really the best at deciding who's the best goalkeeper, but Wallace did a pretty good job. I might look at changing him out for someone a bit better, but he's still only young, so he'll be here at least as a backup for next season. I think we are letting go of our backup at the end of the season anyway. But yeah, he didn't do too bad. He conceded 35 and 24. He's not had the best average rating, and didn't have all that many clean sheets. I think it was only 3, so stuff to work on there for him. But again, he's getting better, and we might only have him as a backup moving forward. Now, the next two that we brought in were actually a bit later in the window. So we brought Graham Ramage in as a like a deadline day signing, because I wasn't too sure on what the transfer rules were. He, despite his stats, is a really, really well-rounded player. He got 10 goals for us in 16 games and 6 assists, 11 in 21 in all appearances. Played a couple of games for Vale of Levin last season, but never really got going. And to be fair, was really effective as that sort of target man up front. You know, he's 5'11", he's a little bit taller, he's got a decent jump on him, he can head. And at this level, even though you've seen a lot of 7s, 8s and 9s, it's all across the board, so he's really well rounded. And to be fair, did a really good job for us filling in the midfield when later on in games when necessary. So I was really happy with him. We'll definitely be looking to keep him for another year. He was really effective. And Craig Thompson, who unfortunately got a bad injury in the 3-team playoff in the last game, in sort of the last 15 minutes. So he was out for the playoff final, and I think if we'd had him in, we might have done a lot better. Really versatile, can play anywhere across this back line, as well as playing as a bit of a wing back, and even can be put in midfield if necessary. Just really good all-round stats for the level he's at. He is 32, but if we can get another year out of him, that'd be great. We had got him on a free after he played for Cowdenbeath last season in League Two. So to be fair, he's played at a higher level, and he really showed. He was a really good centre-half pairing with one of the Pickles brothers that we had. So yeah, we'll definitely look to get him in as well for another season. So I'll take you over now to the tactics, and this is how we sort of rolled. We played this sort of 4-2-4, 4-4-2, maybe in a little bit more defensive areas. Wing play, which in reality was an adaptation of the long ball tactic that has been really popular on this year's Match Engine, where instead of us just pinging balls over the top, we're putting balls out wide, we're putting them onto the wingers and getting them to get crosses in, either to Liam Delde, who was already here at the club. I know him as an absolute goal-scoring machine on previous editions of this save. You know, he got 19 in 26 this year. His stats aren't even that amazing, but he's fairly quick, and he's got a little bit of something about him, and his first touch is good as well. And ultimately, that's almost all you need at this point. A little bit of composure as well. I'm playing him as a striker, even though he's a right winger. I think he flourishes a lot more up front than he does on the wing. So, all being well, I'm going to keep him here for definitely a couple of years at least. And yeah, this is sort of the system we were playing. So you can see there, Sweeney was playing off him. You had Short and Ahmed on either side, and then latterly we had Ramage in the midfield. But more likely it was Watson and one of the Pickles brothers, which I believe was James Pickles, who is 32 now and I think might be looking to retire. I might be moving him on as well because he played really well, despite when you look at his stats, there's nothing spectacular there. He wasn't all that amazing, but he just did a job for us in that midfield alongside Watson. So this is how we sort of ended up at the end. Obviously, Thompson, as I said, picked up that really bad injury. He was, he's still out for a couple of weeks now. He sprained his ankle again. So we had Owen Rendell at the back, who, in fairness, I think I might keep because he was already at the club, but he's just got a little bit of physical about him, which is really nice for a defender at this level. Andy can play in that DM role, and even though his technicals aren't amazing, as just a fringe player that's already here, I just think it's a really, really useful person to have. The reason why we've got all these players on here is not because of transfers or anything. These are all just youth intake players that we haven't managed to put into a youth team yet. I'll be hoping to do that in the off season. In fact, now's the time probably to talk about how we're gonna approach next season. So I'm thinking about sticking with the same system. I don't think there's any reason to change the tactic at this point. It's very effective. I could even go into some of the deep dive of the stats if necessary. But I really think this is the way forward to go. And I think in terms of where we need to improve, Wallace I think is a definite as a goalkeeper at some point. Our backup is Liam Valentine, who I think is leaving anyway. He is. We're going to need another goalkeeper. Whether or not we improve on Wallace, I don't know. It depends on what our budget is like and what's available. But we've got to be looking at another goalkeeper there. Definitely. I definitely think we need maybe one or two centre-halves. We're going to have Craig Thompson next year, but we need someone else to go alongside him. I think one of the pickles is he's retiring. I don't know if it's John or James. I think it is James who said he might be looking to retire. He's partially retiring on the 19th of May. What partially retiring means, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we can get him on a coaching job, but we definitely need to improve on that centre half at that point. Left back and right back are fine. We might just need to get a couple of youngsters in because I think Chris Simpson might also be looking at retiring. I never played him anyway. He is retiring later on in this month, so we're going to need some backup for Cameron on that right hand side. The other two that came up there were just youth prospects, we won't be using him. And the same on that left-hand side. We had a backup in terms of Niall McKay on that left back position, who's been here a long time, but we're going to move him on because we're not using him, and he's 22 and he's not really getting much better, and he's on 40 quid a week, which is quite a lot for this level, so we need to be looking at replacing that and getting a bit better. And then moving up the pitch, I think we need someone in that midfield. We might even move Ramage into the midfield position, and maybe move Watson on as well. We'll have to see. Basically, a lot can change with these players. Whether or not you get good offers, whether or not they want to stay, that really depends on how you're going to pick your team and how you're going to make transfers and who you're going to sign. We know for a fact that Ahmed and Hallsman are leaving, so that left wing definitely needs work. I'm going to try my utmost to try and get Liam Short back because I think we've got someone there who's proven to be good enough for this level. Let's get him either on a permanent or try and get him on another loan and get him a bit of backup as well, maybe a youngster. And then up front, I think we're going to need to upgrade on Sweeney because obviously he's leaving, and Delday and Ramage can't do it forever. I might even start playing Ramage in midfield, but at his age and with his stats, he's probably going to start to decline quite quickly. So we're going to probably need some backup in those positions. So we're covering sort of around the board. We need to get out who we're going to get out first, and then look to bring in replacements from there. And I think that's how you go about playing these sort of saves. You have a high turnover of players, like I said. And if the players don't want to be there and you've got players on high wages, that's the place to sort of move. Touching on wages, that is our wage. We've got 1,200 in the bank, which is a surprise considering we've only got 1,000 in the bank in total. But we've got 1,200 a week wage budget that we are already spending about $1,000 of, but we are also going to try and look to cut that down. When you actually look at the biggest spenders in the club, we've got John Pickles here on £150 a week. I think for that alone, he needs to be given a new contract just to get him off £150. If he doesn't want to go off £150, he's out of the club because we can't really afford to have players on that sort of wage at this level. Wallace is on 75, that's not too bad. Pickles is retiring, he's on 60. I mean, Eric Buse is on 55, he's 38. I didn't use him once. So there's, Callum Jesseman, another £50 a week, didn't use. There's a lot of players here that we did not use that are on big money. Gregor Dowell, we gave him a couple of appearances off the bench. He won't be being used in the future. I think the rest of the players that were already at the club are going to have to be moved on, apart from the likes of maybe Delday and one of the Pickles brothers, because we just don't have the money for them, and we don't need them. We have given £5 contracts to all of our youth development sort of people, so that's obviously going to take out a bit of cash. But you're talking, fiver each. You're talking there how many people, like how many 16? So not massive amounts of money. So that's not too big of an issue. And then obviously the loanees as well, who we weren't paying anything for, and a couple more there at the bottom that we were not paying huge money for. So that's the squad, and that is basically the club. In terms of where we've got to be aiming for next season, we've got to be looking at repeating it. We've got to be looking at next year, really nailing down the league and making another run at the playoffs and going that one step further. The one caveat is that because we finished in sort of the top 4 or the top 6, which Orkney I don't think did in real life previously, you do end up getting entered into a couple of other cup competitions. So I think one is the North of Scotland Cup. In fact, there's a good way of proving this. If I go to here and go to Invergordon, who won the league last year, this was their competitions this year. So they got put into the Scottish Cup. and they were knocked out in the first round. So we've got to be looking at making a run at the Scottish Cup this year, because obviously there's money to be made, and if we look at the rules, we know that there is money to be made. There's a grand there. For a first round appearance fee. In the first round, it's a couple of grand. If we were to somehow miraculously make it into the second and third round, you're looking at £10,000, money being made there. So we've really got to be looking at making a good run in that and getting a good draw. I think there was another competition, but it doesn't seem to be showing up. I think there was one called the North of Scotland Cup, but I'm not entirely sure if we get into it anymore. I will just have a look. Maybe it's someone like these. So there is a North of Scotland Cup, which I believe teams are from the Highland League and a couple from the North Caledonian League. So it looks like winners or sort of teams that have been relegated you get put into this sort of North of Scotland Cup. I'd imagine we get put into it because we are in the north of Scotland, but maybe because we're not on the mainland, maybe that has something to do with it. But at most, we're looking at potential 5 competitions to have to juggle with this season, which won't be great. But obviously, the Scottish Cup could be only a couple of games. The North of Scotland Cup might only be 1 game, and then it's just the usual 2 anyway. But we've got to be looking at making runs in these because it makes us money. If you win either one of these competitions, it's 10 grand. There's no appearance fee, and I think the same can be said for the North of Scotland Cup as well. Yeah, you get 10,000 for winning it, but there is only 4 rounds to go through, so that's not too bad. So yeah, that's all I've got time for, really. That is everything that there is about Orkney from season 1. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you think about the state of the club. Let me know what you think about the state of season 1. And yeah, if you're interested in tuning in live, I am live at twitch.tv/jamstock. I don't have a full-on schedule at the minute, but I tend to be streaming a couple of times a week, mainly in the days, but I think that will be changing towards the evenings into the future. And yeah, that's where you can find me, and that's where you can follow along with this save. In fact, I think just after filming this video, I'm going to be streaming the pre-season for season 2. So yeah, looking forward to that, and yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you did, and let me know if you think of any sort of changes to the team or how I can make any of these videos better. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you here for a roundup of season 2. So until then, I'll see you later.